You want to play hero? Do it somewhere else. You're fired. In a small-town diner, a waitress stood up for what was right and lost everything. All she did was defend a stranger, a pagan biker, harassed by local cops for nothing more than a look. The next morning, the diner held its breath. More than 500 pagan bikers rolled in, with questions no one dared to ask, and a message no one could ignore. Hi, and welcome to Unraveled Whispers. Let's begin. The late morning lull inside the diner was the only part Emily Carter didn't mind. The regulars had settled into their usual booths, coffee pots were full, and the jukebox played something slow and forgettable. Plates clattered in the kitchen, and somewhere behind the swinging door, Roy Duggan was already barking orders, his voice sharp enough to carry, even when he wasn't trying. Roy owned the place, and everyone knew he could hold a grudge longer than he could hold a conversation. Emily moved from table to table, refilling mugs and pretending not to hear him, tuning out the occasional grumble from a customer with too much time and not enough manners. It wasn't the job she wanted, not even close, but it helped cover her law textbooks and it kept her in school, so she took it. Greasy apron, long hours and all. She was in her third year of a part-time law program at the local college. Every weekday afternoon, she shed her server's notepad and apron, ran to catch the bus, and tried to forget how much she hated being here. The diner wasn't just exhausting, it was quietly cruel. Roy barked more than he managed. Co-workers spread gossip like jam on toast. And the regulars, most of them older men who barely made eye contact, treated her like furniture unless their coffee was cold. Still, rent was rent. Tuition was due. Dreams didn't pay for themselves. The bell above the door chimed. Emily didn't look up at first. Bells chimed all morning, but the shift in the room told her this one was different. Boots hit tile. Slow. Heavy. A man in a worn black jacket walked in. Tall, broad, long beard, arms inked in tattoos that ran down to his knuckles. On the back of the jacket, bold and unmistakable, Pagan's Motorcycle Club, a symbol that meant different things to different people. But here in this small-town diner, it meant one thing: trouble. The room reacted like it always did to someone who didn't fit the mold. Conversations thinned. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Every set of eyes followed him, some curious, most wary. But the biker didn't look at anyone. He wasn't loud, didn't swagger, just walked with the kind of slow, heavy calm that came from carrying things no one could see. Without a word, he took the corner booth by the window. Table 6. The room held its breath. Mandy, a server with a permanent eye roll and a grudge against Emily since day one, leaned in as she passed. "Well, not gonna fight me for that table too?" Emily didn't answer. She didn't need to. A second later, Roy appeared behind her and gave a sharp nod toward the biker. "Go take his order." Of course, when no one else wanted to do something, they sent Emily. Emily grabbed a menu and headed toward table 6. Up close, the man looked even more worn than he had from across the room. The leather jacket sat heavy on his shoulders. His beard was rough, his jaw tight. The tattoos along his hands weren't just for show. They told a life no one here wanted to ask about. His eyes stayed on the table, still, guarded, like someone who'd rather be anywhere else. She set the menu down gently. "We've got fresh coffee," she said, not rehearsed, just automatic. "Want a cup?" He gave a short nod. "Yeah, black." When she came back with it, he took it without a word. No thanks, no eye contact, just a quiet nod, and both hands wrapped around the mug. Emily didn't push. She didn't need to. "You thinking breakfast?" she asked. "Kitchen's still moving. I can put something in." He glanced up just for a moment. "Eggs, toast, whatever's fast." She scribbled it on her pad, then added, "Hash browns too." On the house. That earned the smallest pause. Not quite a smile, just a breath of surprise. She didn't explain herself. She didn't have to. He was sitting in a room full of people who clearly didn't want him there, and someone ought to treat him like a person. When she brought the plate over, she hesitated a moment before setting it down. "Haven't seen you around before," she said casually. "Just passing through." "Number my father passed." A quiet breath. "I'm here for the funeral, sorting a few things." That was all. No story, no details. Emily felt it land. "I'm sorry," she said, just above a whisper. He gave a slow nod, then picked up his fork, eyes on his plate, quietly eating, minding his own business, even if the room had already made up its mind about him. She watched for a second longer. That weight he carried, it was quiet, heavy, etched into the rough lines of his face and the silence in his voice. Not something for display, but it was there, and she saw it. She turned toward the counter, grabbing the coffee pot again, more out of habit than need. Outside, tires slowed along the curb. A police cruiser rolled to a stop in front of the diner. It didn't move on. Inside, something shifted. Quiet, but everyone felt it. "Cops again," someone muttered at the counter. Mandy looked up from her stack of menus. "They've been circling every morning since that liquor store got hit." "Third time this week," another regular added. "Guess they still haven't found who did it." 3 days ago, a gas station nearby had been robbed. Gun pulled, cash taken. Witness gave a vague description. Tattoos, dark jacket, maybe a motorcycle out front. It wasn't much, but in this town, it was enough. Since then, the cops had been making rounds. Shops, corners, diners, asking questions, looking. The door opened. 2 officers stepped inside like they already knew who they were there for. Their eyes went straight to table 6. No hesitation. They walked right to him. "Mind showing us some ID?" one asked, already standing too close. The biker didn't flinch. He looked up slowly, calm and unreadable, then reached into his jacket, pulled out a wallet, and handed over his ID. "You from around here?" the officer asked. "No," the biker said, voice low and gravel deep. "Came in yesterday. My father passed. I'm here for the funeral." The cop barely nodded, just passed the ID to his partner, who leaned in like that changed everything. "You ride?" the first one asked. "Yeah," the biker replied, then added flat, "That a problem?" Neither answered. The second officer stepped in closer. His hand hovered near the biker's arm, just a little too close. "Let's step outside a minute," he said. Not a question, a command in soft clothes. "Why?" the biker asked. "You charging me with something?" Still no answer. He started to rise, slow and careful. That's when Emily stepped in. No pause, no second thought. She moved between them. "Back off," she said, calm but firm. The second officer froze. "He gave you ID, told you why he's here," she said. Her voice was louder now. "You've got no grounds to touch him." "Ma'am, step aside." "No," Emily said. "You don't get to lay hands on someone just because he's got tattoos and a bike. That's not suspicion. That's profiling." The diner fell silent. Forks stopped moving. Conversations died out. From across the room, Roy called out, sharp and tired, "Emily, let them do their job." She didn't turn. "They're not doing their job," she said. "They're trying to make him guilty because he looks like someone who could be." The second cop's jaw flexed. "People like him usually are." Emily locked eyes with him. "Then get a warrant, or a witness, not just a guess and a patchy description." The first officer sighed through his nose, then handed the ID back. "If this comes back on you," he said, "don't say we didn't warn you." "I won't," Emily replied. He gave her a slow once-over. "Maybe you're in the wrong job. Sound more like a lawyer for criminals than a waitress." Emily didn't blink. "I'm a law student," she said, "and I know the difference between a question and harassment. Do you?" He said nothing. The bell over the door gave a dry jingle as the officers stepped out into daylight. Inside, the silence stayed. The biker looked up. His gaze met Emily's. Steady, unreadable. "You didn't have to do that," he said quietly. Emily shook her head. "You didn't deserve it." A pause settled between them. Not awkward, just full. Then the faint clink of a fork broke it. The biker gave a short nod, like a silent thank you, and looked down at his plate. He picked at the last bites of food. From across the room, a voice barked, "Emily! Office, now!" It was Roy, the diner's owner. His tone left no room for discussion. A few customers turned their heads. Mandy glanced over, then quickly looked away. Emily walked toward the back, shoes tapping across the tile. She pushed through the swinging door. The office was small, stale, and smelled like fryer oil and paperwork. Roy stood behind the desk, one hand on the edge, the other rubbing his temple. "You know what you just did?" he said. Emily stayed quiet. "You made a scene with the cops. During morning rush." She opened her mouth. "Don't," he snapped. "You think the regulars like that? Think they'll come back knowing you're the one picking fights with law enforcement?" Emily met his stare, jaw tight. "I wasn't picking a fight. They crossed a line," Roy scoffed. "Not your call to make. You pour coffee. You don't play lawyer." He stepped forward, voice rising. "Now I've got a room full of customers whispering that this place supports criminals. You think that helps me? Helps the business?" His voice dropped, cold and final. "Collect your check tomorrow. I'll tally your hours." Emily blinked. "You're firing me? For doing the right thing?" "I'm firing you because you don't know your role," Roy snapped. "And I won't lose business over your principles." Silence. Emily turned and walked out. Back on the floor, the diner had gone back to normal, or at least tried. She stepped out slowly. Table 6 was empty. Her eyes fell to the plate. A $5 bill sat beneath its edge. Small, but placed like it meant something. A whisper carried across the booth behind her. "Told you it was all an act. Bet that story about his dad was fake." Another voice from the counter followed, smug and loud enough to sting. "She backed the wrong guy. She'll regret it." Emily stood still, every word sinking in like static under her skin. Doubt crept in. Had she been played? Had he just sat there, fed her a story, let her take the fall, and walked out? She looked toward the door. Gone. No goodbye, no glance back. Just a folded $5 bill and 100 unspoken questions. The next morning, Emily stepped into the diner just after the mid-morning lull. The bell chimed. A few heads turned, then quickly away. No one spoke to her. She moved straight toward the counter. Roy stood behind it, sorting slips, eyes on everything but her. He glanced up from the register. "Didn't think you'd show," he said, jaw already tight. "I'm just here for the check," she replied, voice low but firm. He pulled an envelope from under the counter and slid it across without meeting her eyes. "Good luck out there," he muttered. "Good luck finding a place that puts up with stunts like that." Emily didn't answer. She opened the envelope and glanced at the bills. It wasn't much. Rent was due in 3 days. Tuition payments loomed, and the part-time barista job she'd been eyeing hadn't called back. No backup, no safety net. Just this, a week's worth of hours in a town that had already turned its back. The bell never chimed. Emily was halfway to the door with the paycheck envelope pressed tight in her coat pocket when she heard it. Not the bell, the rumble. Low at first, like a storm starting over the horizon, then thicker, closer, rolling in layers. She turned just as the windows of the diner began to rattle. Outside, a procession of motorcycles pulled into the parking lot. Not 2, not 10, dozens, then more and more. Engines cut one by one, but the silence that followed was heavier. Leather, chrome, matching patches, Pagan's motorcycle club. People inside stood, hands frozen around mugs and forks. Roy stopped mid-step behind the counter. A waitress whispered, "Oh my God." Another regular leaned forward. "They're back. For that guy, or maybe for her." Emily stood still, her feet glued to the floor, disbelief settling over her like dust. No fear, just a slow rising question in her chest. "What is this?" The door opened with a soft squeak, and he stepped in. Same man from yesterday, same black vest, same weather-bitten eyes. Behind him, the wall of bikers remained outside, silent, present, unmoving. He walked toward her, not fast, not loud, just straight. No one breathed. Emily didn't move. "I didn't get to say thank you," he said, voice gravel soft. "Not properly." "You didn't have to," she replied, her voice too, barely above the hum in the walls. "I know. That's what made it matter." He reached into his jacket, pulled out a thick envelope, weathered edges, sealed tight, and held it out to her. "They fired you. We heard." Emily hesitated. "How did you even—" "Word spreads," he said. especially when someone gets burned for doing the right thing. I told the club, told them how you stood up while the rest of that room held its breath, how you didn't flinch when they tried to humiliate me. He paused, searching her face. Most folks see the vest, the beard, the ink, and they decide who I am before I open my mouth. You didn't. You saw someone being cornered. That meant something. Emily looked down at the envelope. What is this? He nodded gently. Something to keep you going. When she didn't take it, he added, You're a law student, right? Working this place to keep the lights on. That's what got to me. He glanced around the diner once, saw the wary stares, and Roy half hiding behind the register, then looked back at her. Maybe it hit too close. Maybe because my mom waited tables in places just like this. Scraped by for years to get me through. She passed too, years before my dad. Emily blinked. He wasn't just telling a story. He was showing her what none of them had bothered to see. We don't do handouts, he said. We pass the hat when something matters. You mattered. A second biker entered, older, with gray in his beard and heavy eyes that carried years. Then another. A woman this time, sleeves of tattoos and a kind set to her mouth. One by one, they stepped through the door, filling the space. Not loud, not chaotic, respectful, present. The man gestured to the envelope still in his hand. It's not just for your next semester. That's tuition, full ride, all the way to the bar exam. Emily's eyes widened. The older woman biker stepped closer. I run a shop 2 towns over. We need help with legal work and filings. I can teach you what you don't know. Pays better than here, and no one's going to fire you for having a backbone. Emily's voice was small. I didn't do it for money. We know, the older biker said from behind. That's exactly why it's for you. The woman added, You saw a man. Not a threat. That don't happen much. He finally handed her the envelope. You've got more spine than most lawyers I've met, he said. So we figured you should be one. She took it, slow, carefully, then quietly. What's your name? Cole, he said. First time in this town. Came for my father's funeral. Thought I'd leave with nothing but silence. He looked around the room. Didn't expect to meet someone who could see through the noise. Emily swallowed. The old biker stepped closer. Name's Hawk. I've been writing 40 years. You know what most people see when they look at us? He didn't wait for an answer. Trouble, crime, noise. He tapped his chest. But under all this, I'm a father of 3. Lost my eldest to leukemia. I still call her name every morning. His voice didn't break, but Emily felt it anyway. The woman stepped forward. We're not saints, but we're not devils either. Just people who live loud and stay loyal. Cole nodded to her. We've seen worse from clean-shaven men in suits than any rider in our crew. Another biker added, This isn't about pity or paying a debt. It's about seeing someone with guts and making sure the world doesn't grind her down for it. Emily looked down at the envelope again. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she nodded. Thank you, she said. All of you. Cole gave a soft half smile. Ride safe, Emily. You've got people now. They didn't stay for photos, didn't wait for thanks. One by one, they filed out. Cole was the last to turn. If you ever need backup, just listen for the thunder. Then the engine started again. The sound shook the windows, but not the girl standing inside. She stood still in the middle of that small-town diner, holding more than money. She held freedom, a way forward, a sign that doing the right thing still meant something. She held a message. You're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. 3 years passed, and then a name was called, Emily Carter. Applause rose inside a modest auditorium as she crossed the stage in a black gown, diploma in hand. She'd made it. No shortcuts, no handouts, just grit, books, and long nights working jobs that paid just enough. She paused midway through her short speech, scanning the rows. Professors, classmates. Her mother near the front, misty-eyed. And then, near the back, she saw them. Black leather, faded denim, sun-worn faces. They sat shoulder to shoulder, quiet and respectful. Cole gave her a small nod. That same quiet one he gave years ago over a plate of eggs and hash browns. The woman with the tattoos was beside him. Hawk too, arms folded, his eyes softer than they looked. They didn't cheer, didn't stand out. They were just there, present. After the ceremony, Emily stepped outside into the afternoon sun. The parking lot buzzed with families and photos. Cole was waiting by his bike, arms crossed, a half smile tugging at his mouth. "Didn't want to miss the day you became what you were always meant to be," he said. Emily blinked, emotions tightening her throat. "You remembered." "We don't forget spine," Hawk said, stepping up behind him. "Not when we see it." The woman offered a small wrapped box. Inside was a custom-made nameplate for her new office. Emily Carter, attorney at law. Underneath, in smaller engraving, "Stand firm. Ride free." She looked up, words caught behind a smile. Cole tipped his head. "Told you, if you ever needed backup, you'd bring thunder," Emily finished softly. This time they all smiled. And for a long moment, it felt like the road that brought them here had always been meant to cross. Sometimes standing up for a stranger can cost everything. But in the end, it just might bring everything back. And more. If this story stayed with you, give it a like. And if you want to hear more stories where quiet courage changes everything, subscribe now. Share it with someone who still believes that kindness always finds its way back. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.